there is a feeling and misapprehension about the status or function of the director in theatre. He is mostly considered as a creative head, and we also have given him this name in the last 2 lectures when we were talking about his role as a director. But we have to realize the fact that his function is more interpretative, rather purely interpretative than being creative, and his work is considered excellent only where he seems to be absent or not present at all. In an ideal theatre, he would not exist at all. That is what John Gessner describes his role as. If playwrights had written completely stage-worthy plays, if the actors were capable, had the intelligence and skill to work together and interpret these plays, the director would have no function to perform. But factually, it is not so. Someone has to take the responsibility to bring the best out of the script, to help the average author appear like a playwright, and an average actor appear better than what he is. If the director has emerged on the theatre scene or has been accepted as important and central figure in the process of play production, it is said to be failing of the playwright or actors to bring out the best from their work. What the director does? He realizes the latent energies of men and women of outstanding talent and experience. He encourages them, admires them, makes them think. He assembles the best. He could find it in every field and put them to work according to the nuances and subtleties of the given script. This is interpretation. Now, there can be an example of this. An actor or an actress would be playing a scene in which she is supposed to go into utmost rage. The actor would shout at the peak of her voice and clench his fists, because the actor does not know any other way of doing it. The director would ask if there is any other way of expressing rage, because it is not usual that a man would clench his fingers every time he is angry. He may turn his back towards the audience, or the co-actor would do some other gestures or fresh way of expressing those emotions. The actors, scene designers, playwrights start to wander and start working on their imagination, and interpretative process starts working out. So, we have seen a director is only a substitute for an author's executive weaknesses. This is a fundamental realization that should govern his thoughts and his feelings. A director is never better than his play. So, the first thing a director must do with the play is to read it, which is his most challenging and difficult assignment. Play is not only a written material like other pieces of literature. It is a fragment of living matter, and in its capacity to come alive, director's business is to detect with immediate intuition its meaning, references, intricacies, its dishonesties, as also its editorial meanderings. To do this job, he has to see through and beyond the written word. He must not read with his eyes alone, but with all his senses and emotions. He not only tries to understand the action, he tries to see it, hear it, and feel its impact. He would read into it more than the script can ever convey to the audience. His sole concern is the interpretation of the living action, as the theatre is a living phenomenon. All his sensitivities of images makes a hollow script turn into a transparent living picture when it is transformed on the stage. The audience would be conscious only of a vague reality. The contents of the play will remain untouched. Mainly, the function of the stage director is to translate a play text into stage terms, which means to make the written play meaningful, interesting, enjoyable by means of living actors, sounds, colors and movements, to see that it runs smoothly and clearly, interpret the text in every way, so that the play is properly and relevantly conveyed to the audience. The ultimate performance contains the meaning, the actors, the sets and the costumes, the music and all other elements are used to make the production come alive. And this relation to one another and as a whole performance, it leads towards the play's meaning and interpretation. And it starts with the interpretation of the text. The written play communicates through a word confined only to words. Actual words written on the script are read in a similar way, but translation of them into a mental picture is interpretative. When we start the process of reading, a relationship is established between the words on the page and created visuals and auditory imagination, establishing or visualizing a context. The context in relation to the words produce meaning. Those contents are expressions of our personal reaction to what we see and what we are reading, which means the words of the playwright. Now, the process of reading a play is mainly an act of imagination. Simultaneous images are created in our minds, relationships are found, context searched and situations understood. Through this exercise, we try to personalize the words on the page. The words are signifying something special to us, and we, as we read, try to give them meaning. Whether we are reading for the performance or for our own pleasure. A point of view is developed. The text of the written play is made up by the words spoken by the characters in their conversations and the stage directions. These provide description of the characters or direct on stage action. Description of expressions and gestures are less specific, not told. Even the costumes are not specified. Written stage directions are only the suggestions or referral impressions. Take for example, the opening scene of Mohan Rakesh's play Ashad Ka Ek Din. Mallika enters completely drenched in rain. She is completely in love and talks about the first day of Ashad and the rain and drenching of everything around her. The lines she speaks like, आषाढ़ का पहला दिन और ऐसी वर्षा, वहाँ दूर दूर तक की उपत्यकाएं भीग गई और मैं भी तो देखो ना माँ कैसी भीग गई हूँ. With the benefit of stage directions, we get to know that the mother is on stage doing some work and is not in a happy mood. But there are many questions which the stage directions are not able to answer. Like, what does the rain denote? After getting wet in the rain, is she in a happy state of mind? Because she went to meet Kalidas, or she is pretending to be happy? Why is Ambika not responding to her conversation? What did she expect? How long has she been out? Does her response mean she thinks that Mallika is in an awful situation, or she is not giving heed to her advice of not meeting Kalidas? Is her reaction a product of exhaustion, depression, hateful, dismay? What? The answers to these questions form the basis for an interpretation or a point of view. A performance in the theatre is an interpretation translated to the stage. The members of the audience in turn view on stage performance, provide a personal context and interpret it to relate to their own lives. This also means the journey of the interpretation starts initially with the author, who while writing a script gives meaning and perspective to a particular concept, gives it a point of view. As play is written to be performed on stage, the visual imagination of the author gets transformed into the words of the characters and their conversations between each other. Stage directions suggest to some extent their version or point of view of a particular situation. The script then is passed on to the director, or to say the director selects that script for stage performance, which means that the director has rightfully got the interpretation of the play's script. He has got the meaning of the play, the situations and characters himself, and he has found it convincing for transforming this interpretation along with his own point of view of that interpretation into stage performance. The director makes his own point of view and collects a team of actors, designers and assistants to pass this point of view to them. The actors and designers put their creative energies into the execution of director's interpretation to the audience. adding their own experiences to the understanding of the whole concept of the director. The audience ultimately gets to understand the concept and the story as it has been represented to them by the director through his team of artists. The audience, with their own understanding and experience of life, receive the point of view of the director, lending their own meanings of the whole performance. Hence, theatre performance is a kind of storytelling, and its importance lies in the unique way in which the story is presented or interpreted. It is a form of expression that communicates meaning from person to person by means of unique images that exist only for a moment, never to be repeated in exactly the same way. The director creates these theatrical images through the relationship of living actors to the words and actions of the play, to each other and to theatrical space. Taken together, they establish a further relationship with the audience, a relationship that changes with each performance. The written word is considered most important in this context. Contradictions also appear, as in the case of Antonin Artaud, the poet, director, playwright, and theoretician. He questioned the traditional relationship of written play to performance, asking that performance be regarded as worthy of investigation in its own right. He says that everything that cannot be expressed in speech, in words, or if you prefer, everything that is not contained in dialogue is left in the background. He says, dialogue, a thing written and spoken, does not belong specifically to the stage. It belongs to books. In opposition of looking at things, why not conceive of a play composed directly on the stage, realized on the stage? Similarly, Jerry Grotowski, a director whose work became widely known during 1960s, formed a Polish laboratory theatre and worked out treatment of written plays, changing them drastically to serve the new dramatic forms they were creating. He said that theatre can exist without costumes, sets. It can exist without music or lighting effects, and also without a text. He says that history of the theatre confirms this. In the evolution of theatre art, the text was one of the last elements to be added. If we place some people on a stage with a scenario they themselves have put together and let them improvise their parts, as in the Commedia dell'arte, the performance would be equally good, even if the words are not articulated but simply muttered. For Grotowski, therefore, the written play was not as important as it continues to be in more traditional theatre. Today, performance artists combine dance, visual art, and the spoken word in a new kind of theatre that relies much less on written text or speech than on the total impact of the performance. So, in such cases, interpretation of the script becomes irrelevant. It is only the projection of the idea in performance with or without words, communicating through other means, then finding meaning from the words of the text. But most of the production teams begin with the written script, and a director uses the written script as the basis of his transforming the idea according to his own perception, because he is not a creative artist, he is an interpreter. One advantage using a written text is that the words of a play remain the same from production to production. Choices are made in their interpretations. Written script is not performance, and every production is a translation of its own interpretation of a particular play, written or not, on stage.